All right, this is going to be my Pelican Trailblazer 100 Angler kayak review. I'm going to real quickly go through the pros and cons and whether or not I would recommend this kayak to another person. To start off, the number one, well, I don't know if it's the number one, but one of the biggest selling points for me was it was $300. I got a 10-foot kayak with rod holders, a little storage area, and some bungees for 300 bucks. And I'm really not sure, based on how it's worked for me, if I would be able to find a brand new fishing kayak for 300 bucks that's better than what this has been for me. So that's number one. Number two, it is super lightweight, 39 pounds. It's easy to carry. You grab it, you can see it's hollow, it's a sit-in, so I can just grab it right here, pick it up, carry it around, move it around, carry it long distances if I need to. Thirdly, it loads in and out of my truck very, very, very easily because of its lightweight. It is only 10 foot long, so it does not stick way out the back of my bed. I drive a 4-door Dodge Ram 1500. It's not a long bed, it's a regular bed, and it just hangs out I put it in diagonal so it's hanging out the corner of the back of the bed. It doesn't stick out that far. It straps down very easily. Makes it super easy to take down on the lake or wherever I'm going to take it. Maneuverability in the water. This thing turns nicely. Stop and go. I can get it to do just about whatever I want. It moves through the water fairly smoothly. I'm sure there's faster kayaks, but as far as just moving around in it, getting to where I need to go, it's hard to beat. The bungee cords on here, I like them because, especially these ones on the front, I put 4 rods in this kayak. How do I do that, you ask? Well, I have 2 here that I'm not using. The one I'm fishing with is obviously in my hand. That's 3. The 4th I will put here. I'll take the end of my rod and I will just work it underneath the bungees just like that, and it sits just like that on top of my kayak. Sometimes I'll put the other bungee or 2 over the end of the rod there, and it just sits there just like that. And that way I've got 1 rod in my hand, 2 in the back, and 1 here, and I got 4 rods. I will say in the future I do plan on building a rod holder out of PVC that I can stick down into my existing rod holders, where I will have 4. I'll have 4 holes, so when I'm going out to my spot, I can have all 4 rods stored in the rod holders, where I can just focus on having the paddle and not having to paddle with a rod in my lap at the same time. So the bungees make that possible. If I needed to strap something else down right there, I could. That's very helpful. Comfort. So this is funny because for 300 bucks, this is one of those you get what you pay for type deals. This seat, basically all that's between your rear end and the plastic is this pretty thin neoprene type material. But it is shaped nicely to my rear, my back, and this little rest is adjustable. So I could tighten it up to give a little bit more back support if I wanted. I just kind of let it lay back. In the beginning, I was uncomfortable because I didn't like sitting down in it. I want to be up a little bit more when I'm fishing, but if you're going to be in this kayak for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, it is actually pretty comfortable. Obviously, there are more comfortable kayaks, and I'll talk about one at the end of this video that would probably be a lot more comfortable than this one. But overall, it's really, for 300 bucks, it's pretty comfortable. Stability is the final talking point on the pros. This is a 10-foot kayak. It's 28 inches wide here at its widest point. That's not that wide. It's actually pretty narrow. But despite, despite it only being 28 inches wide, the stability is actually pretty darn good. No, you're not going to stand up in this kayak. It's only 10 foot, 28 inches wide. You could stand in it. There is enough room there to do it. meaning there's enough room for your feet. You try and stand up in this thing, you're going to go in the drink. But despite it being only 28 inches wide, sitting in it, turning around, pulling rods out of the rod holders, moving around in general, it's pretty darn stable. I've had it in fairly rough water, especially this past weekend. I was out at Big Bear Trout Fest, and it got really windy on Sunday, about 15 mile an hour, and the waves were definitely big enough to come up over the side of my kayak, but I was never really ever worried about falling in or tipping over, so stability is actually pretty decent, despite it only being 28 inches wide. I'll show you this little storage thing back here. Actually, I'll show that to you in just a second. So cons, things I don't necessarily like about it. Leg room. There's plenty of leg room as far as like front to back, how far I can stretch my legs all the way out. I'm only 5'7", 5'8" if I have my shoes on. But if I am in there and I have my tackle box, because that's where I store it, it's right there in between my legs, and I push the tackle box in underneath inside there, there's not a whole lot of room for my feet and that tackle box, because you can see the foot pegs there that are adjustable, by the way. I didn't mention those, they do move depending on your height. It's hard for me sometimes to get my tackle box out without moving my feet out of the way. The problem with that is there's not a whole lot of room for me to move my feet out of the way. So leg room is a little tight in there, especially if you're taller than I am, 5'7". And you know, if you're not carrying your tackle box there, it's not an issue. The problem is you're not going to put your tackle box all the way up here on the bungees, because it's pretty hard to reach it, at least for me. I'm 5'7", and if you're a whole lot taller than that and your arms are long enough to reach all the way up to the front to get your tackle box, you're probably in the wrong kayak anyways. So legroom's a little bit of a negative. I wish it was a little more spacious for me to move around with my tackle box in that little storage area down there. Storage overall, basically what you get is inside the kayak, you get a little bit of bungee there, which I personally use for my rod. That's about it. And then this thing in the back right here. So this just, the bungees go on these hooks, and that's what you get right there. It did not come with that little orange box, but this is my dry box that I keep my wallet and my keys in here, and stringer or whatever else I'm carrying. But that's my hand, so you can see it's not huge. My hand's not real big, so the storage area is not big. And secondly, this is not sealed off. So basically, when I come in, this has got water in it, which isn't a problem because for me, I have that dry box. But if you need to store something in here and you're worried about it getting wet, you got to seal it off. You can't just throw it in there. It's not going to work. Plus, it's not real big, so there's not a whole lot of room in there for you. Moving along, tracking. This kayak, if you start paddling and you stop paddling and kind of just drift with the momentum that you've created from paddling, it will turn left or right on its own. And at times while you're paddling, even if you're being smooth and consistent with a right, left, whatever, it will all of a sudden want to take off to the left or to the right. And it will take literally 5 or 6 pretty hard strokes with the paddle to correct it for some reason. It's really kind of weird. I have no idea why it does that, but it does. And it's weird, and it can be kind of annoying at times. But it is definitely something that I don't like about this kayak. Weight capacity is the final thing that I don't like. It's got a 275-pound weight capacity. So, you know, honestly, if it's 10 foot, you know, I'd say if you're a 5 foot 10 inch person that's not super big would probably be all right in here. But, you know, I'm already 210 with 20-pound thing of tackle. You know, that's 230. You know, I like to throw 2 or 3 water bottles and an energy drink. That's another 5 or 6 pounds. And then I've got 4 rods. I've got my paddle. So I'm pretty much getting close to the weight capacity, and I'm not a super big person. So granted, 5'7", 210, I'm probably bigger than most people that are 5'7". Regardless, I wish it would hold a little bit more weight. If it were bigger than 10 foot, it probably would have a better weight capacity, but it is what it is. Would I recommend this kayak to another fisherman? Yes and no. How does that work? Well, yes, I would recommend it to you if you're tight on a budget. When I say tight on a budget, $300 is your max. This is your kayak. I really don't think you can find a better kayak for 300 bucks, brand new. It does exactly what you need it to do. It gets you out on the water. It's going to get you there safely. It's going to hold all your crap. You may have to get a little creative to do it, but it'll work. All those good things I said about it, for 300 bucks, brand new, I really think you're going to have a hard time finding a better kayak. Why would I say do not buy this kayak? If you save a little bit of money, for $5.99 at Bass Pro, you can get an FST 12 Ascend. I believe it's an Ascend kayak. It's a 12 foot. They have a sit-in or a sit-on-top version. The sit-on-top version seat is basically like a lawn chair that's bolted to the top of the kayak. It's got a super comfortable looking backrest. It's 12 foot, so it's bigger. It's going to have more room. It's got two flush mount rod holders and then a swivel type rod holder. So 3 rod holders come on. And for 600 bucks, it's only 300. I mean, it's twice the price of this, but if you're on a tight budget and 300 bucks is all you can swing, start saving your money and you'll have your 600 in no time. I think looking back, if I had to do it over again, I would have saved a little bit of money and went with the Ascend 12 footer. But again, for 300 bucks, man, brand new, I think this is really hard to beat. So overall, I'm going to give this kayak a 7 out of 10. 10 foot, 28 inches, 39 pounds, $300. It really performs pretty darn well with all those things considered. So I hope this is helpful. My recommendation would be to research, talk to people, and figure out, make yourself a list of I gotta haves and things that don't really matter to you, and go off of that. There you go.